Welcome to Building Birmingham Together, a show about Birmingham's business leaders' successes, failures, and lessons learned to encourage you to remember that dreaming is free, but the hustle is sold separately. I'm your host, Kim Lee, founder and CEO of Forge. Building Birmingham Together is brought to you today by Forge. Forge is Birmingham's first professional co-working space located in the heart of downtown Birmingham at the Pizitz Building. With private offices, open workspace, as well as meeting and event space, Forge is the place where small business owners, entrepreneurs, and remote workers come together, meet new people, and get work done. If you would like to find out more about Forge, you can visit our website, workatforge.com, and schedule a tour directly. Today, we have Dr. Karim Budwhani joining us on Building Birmingham Together. Dr. Budwhani is the co-founder and CEO of Surflux, where they are literally crushing cancer. He is also the co-founder and CEO of Elixir, an innovative software solutions company striving to make the world greener and more efficient. So usually at this point, I like to have a nice little introduction of what the guest does and a few accomplishments. But Karim has done so much and accomplished so many things, and you're laughing, but it's true, that it feels like I'm robbing the richness and the vastness of his work if I just limit this introduction. So what I'm really hoping is that in this interview, we'll be able to pull out all of the places and accomplishments Karim's passions have taken him. I think the last line of Karim's bio from the most recent Vulcan Community Award sums up all that he has done and will do. It says, Karim believes that the twofold purpose of acquiring knowledge is to better understand the fabric of existence and to serve others. So today we are going to hear how that has played out in his life. So Karim, thank you for being here.
Kim, thank you for having me. You're so gracious. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, And I have to go back to the one line that you mentioned earlier about the hustle
Oh yeah,
is,
the
yes,
hustle sold separately.
yeah, and I think that oftentimes, particularly when you're starting something up, I think there's a lot of emphasis on the hustle. But I believe that what we can do and what you are doing, even with Forge, is you're going to reduce some of that friction so that the hustle, even though you have to be committed to what you're doing and you have to be dedicated and so on, but it doesn't have to be an unnecessary struggle. I think that the lower the barriers to
Huh.
take ideas from implementation, I think it benefits everybody. So I appreciate all that you do, and I think having places for people to connect, to share ideas, to to joke, to laugh. I think a lot of that goes into translating ideas to innovation. And so, yeah, I just wanted to you mentioned that, and I said before I forget, I should
That's
make a
right.
note of that. That it should not just always be about the struggle. In fact, we need to, as a society, try to reduce the struggle that is
Hmm.
involved in taking good ideas to innovation.
I love that. Okay, before we really get started, I do want to say one more thing if I haven't already embarrassed you enough, because I know that you don't like to talk about yourself. But so Kareem, if you live in Birmingham and you have not met him, you need to, because he will be your greatest supporter in what you do. But it was so funny. I probably knew you for, I don't know, a year and a half, through Forge, through your supporting of the events that we do, especially the pitch night that we do, serving as a panelist. And it was probably a year and a half or 2 years before, maybe a year and a half, thinking timeline with COVID, before I realized that you were in the medical research scientist industry. I just thought you were an entrepreneur and loved business, and you are an entrepreneur and love business in science. So, Karim, you are a true supporter of entrepreneurship, new ideas. So I'm so glad to have you here to get you to tell your story. And we actually talked, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and I learned so many new things about you. So I cannot wait for you to share your story and give us your perspective and your journey to Surflux and crushing cancer. So I would love for you to start out just by telling us a little bit about your background and how you got to the US.
Man, it just sounds so good when you say it, and I'm thinking to myself, who is she talking about?
You.
I'm telling you, if the good thing is that I have been extremely lucky, because if it weren't for that, I would be nowhere near where I am today. It's so yeah. I mean, even how do I come to the US? That's a long story. As we talked about even last time, I wish I could take credit for that, but it has been a lot of other people contributing to bringing me to where I am. I think as we talked the last week, whenever that was, we grew up in very humble settings. Okay, so it would be appropriate to say that we lived in poverty, and I was extremely lucky. Like I said, this whole strand of lucky happenings has been part of my life. We were able to rise out of poverty. I was able to come out of poverty, and so that in itself is great. If obviously, and I would wish for that for everybody. And that's the other part where I think I got really lucky, is it's not just a matter of coming out of poverty. Once you come out of poverty, you either are, kind of sort of paranoid then about sinking back in. So you either have the attitude of hoarding, you become more protectionist, or you get the attitude of helping. You want to, in fact, help other people who were in your circumstance to be able to rise up, not by just writing them checks, but being able to help them lift themselves out. And so that again was a lucky break for me, because were it not for that, I would not be doing half the things that I'm doing today. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, yeah, you come out of poverty, you have the helping attitude rather than the hoarding attitude. But then, I mean, if you don't have a sort of a bigger picture of what you can do, again, you're kind of at a loss. So even over there, I've been very lucky that I was surrounded throughout my life. Even today, I'm surrounded by people who are just incredible people. Everyone around me has contributed to where I am today. So if you don't have the right people around you, then to inspire you, to guide you, then again, you don't really know how to get out of this and go out and help. But anyway, so so I was in India, and then I was not very happy with the college level education over there. Of course, this little guy coming out of like nowhere, and he has the audacity to say that I'm not really pleased with the college education.
So can
But
I
let's
ask you a quick question? So I
yeah.
know you grew up in India, and I've not been to India. I don't know a lot about India, but I do know that it's a caste system. Is that so? If you are in poverty, how easy is it for you even to get to college in India, in an Indian college?
So yeah, again, there are options. So I think
Okay.
the good news is that India places a lot of emphasis on education. It's a
Okay.
real positive, because that, to me, I think one of the surefire levers of helping people rise out of poverty is education. We can pull the lever and see the impact. And I'm really glad that India has that emphasis on education and on higher education. The institutions of learning up until 12th grade, I think, are pretty solid. In fact, they would give many institutions around the world, especially the ones that I'm familiar with, would give many of the other institutions, K-12 institutions around the world, a huge run for their money. So really solid. Beyond that, once you start going into undergrad and grad study, that's where I think we need a little bit more infrastructural development, which currently is not, or at least I shouldn't say currently. I've been removed from that for some time now. But at the time, we didn't have the right infrastructure, and a lot of it at the time was then based on rote memorization,
Mm-hmm.
and exams were like you show up and you throw up. And that's not the model that I thought was very conducive for growth, for innovation. It was good to be a cog in a wheel by being able to do that. but for going to the next level, it had to be more than just the show up model. And so the good news, again, like, we get very lucky, is at the time, and I'm sure even today they have these institutions, the US and even other countries used to have educational outposts, so to speak, in various different consulates. And they would share details about their college level education and how would one access it from various different contexts. So we had a really active educational institute within the US consulate in Bombay. So I was pretty lucky that I was introduced to that group. And then in learning from them, I recognized what I had to do. I had to do the SATs. This is for undergrad, by the way. And then they would also share all kinds of learning materials for what does it take to, the practice tests for SATs, so on and so forth. So I was able to learn a lot from them about the colleges over here in the United States, even having never been here, and also be able to get those SATs done, get application fee waivers, because remember, we can't afford a dang thing at the time. So, I was able to get application fee waivers from all these schools. I was put in touch with recent alumni. And so there was a lot of good people who worked together to help me build this sort of a pathway to come from India to the United States for my undergraduate education. And I landed in an incredible institution, Co College. It's in Iowa, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I'm from Bombay. I have no idea. I've never heard of Cedar Rapids, let alone Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa, let alone Cedar Rapids. So I was like, where in the world am I going? But I cannot tell you how thankful I am that I went there with people, incredible people. I get to learn from some of the best faculty. Doc Feller, I hope you're listening. Um, and it's not just that, by the way, because remember, I can't afford anything. The good news is that Co also gave me scholarship
Yeah.
to cover my education. Of course, I had to come and I had to do the research and so on and so forth. But I actually enjoyed that. That was, getting paid to have fun, essentially.
Right.
So I loved it. Like I said, it's been a string of lucky accidents. And so yeah, that's how I was able to come to the United States and get my undergrad education at an excellent institution in Iowa.
In Iowa. Yeah. Talk about, I bet you had to buy a different wardrobe as soon as you got there.
So
The
the
cold in
thing,
Iowa.
yeah. So again, that's another crazy thing. When I landed, yeah, of course, things were different. I always say that it's the people's hearts were so warm.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it, but it's not really that. It was that it wasn't winter yet.
That's right.
Um,
It just already felt like winter.
I am telling you, it was just insane. So the first winter was crazy. But then after that, you get used to it. I really
Yeah.
did not have much of a wardrobe shift. Again, couldn't afford much, but just a regular thin jacket, a fall jacket lasted me throughout the year. I did not need much more than that until I got to earning a little bit more money, and then being able to buy a jacket which was a little heavier. But it wasn't too bad at all. It was actually quite fun.
Wow. You have much thicker skin than me. I'm cold in Birmingham at 40 degrees. It feels like I don't want to leave my house.
Listen, I'm the same way now. I'm like, wait a second, what did you say the temperature was?
Yeah. Oh,
I want to get
man.
my hat and now to bundle up and so on and so forth. But when I came here, 18, 19, whatever, you couldn't feel anything.
Well,
I do have natural insulation, by the way.
that's right. No. Well, okay. So you told us a little bit about how you got here, and I realized we haven't yet said what Surflux does. But I also know part of your story that Surflux was not the first company that you started. So we're just going to have a natural procession to your journey of getting to, we gave a teaser that you're crushing cancer with Surflux, but you graduate And I mean, you say it's luck. I know that you are a hard worker and you're so passionate in everything you do. So you graduate, you're from India, you're in Iowa. What happens next? How do you decide what to do?
Well, that's another funny story, by the way. So, I mean, funny not as in haha funny, but so I graduated at the time of a recession, and things are looking pretty bleak. But this is in the early 90s, right?
Oh,
But the good news is that everybody's looking ahead to what is called the Y2k bug. I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but everybody is afraid
oh
that these
yeah.
computer systems, yeah, all these computer systems were just going to have a catastrophic demise as soon as we hit the year 2000, because we had 2-digit years, 2 bytes or whatever it was, as opposed to 4-digit years. So there was a so while the economy was still recovering, um, the tech industry, massive boom. I mean,
Mhm.
they couldn't find enough people. So I was pretty lucky that I had a very strong background in that area, and I was able to graduate and then immediately get a job. And then I was drawn into to Atlanta. A contract brought me there, and then I was then poached to come to Birmingham, Alabama. So I mean, it was an interesting journey where, even though there's a recession, we're just coming out of a recession, so on and so forth, and yet I have a pathway which is very smooth. I'm able to actually come out of college, get hired right away, and then keep moving up. I'm a senior architect before I even know it. Things are just moving along really well. Again, being surrounded by really good people has been the story of my life. Is you go from one project to the other. Every time the project becomes at least a order of magnitude larger. We're looking at these massive growing problems, and we're able to come out ahead in each of those cases. So very fortunate to be with the right team at the right time to be able to come out ahead at every step of the way. And then when I moved to Birmingham, we were just over here having a lot of fun, because Birmingham is a fun place. And one night I was just sitting around with some of my colleagues. I'm from India, as I mentioned. They were also from India, and we were just talking about how the bureaucracy and the red tape and so on and so forth that we had encountered in India, or our families had, and what it would take to set up a company in the United States. We had absolutely no idea what we were going to do or anything like that. But we were just sitting around saying, you know what, let's just do this experiment. Let's just see how bad it is to set up a company here in the US. And then one thing leads to another. We start a company, we start getting contracts, and we start growing. I mean, it's just again the luck of the draw. We were very fortunate. We were able to grow the company. We were able to make a meaningful difference in a lot of different operations and organizations, of various sizes. But our primary goal at the time was, since we were just coming out of the Y2K fiasco anyway,
Mhm.
we saw that there was reams and reams and reams of paper
Right.
that people were printing stuff out. There's a lot of paper at the time, and so we said, why don't we just go ahead and use this new company to reduce operational footprints of companies? So we have to make sure that we are going to make this world greener, that we are not just throwing away resources because it makes no sense to do that. And so that was our primary goal, is to use every resource available to us, technological advances and so on, to reduce dependence on paper insofar as possible, and reduce waste insofar as possible. Because when you reduce waste, when you reduce friction in
Mhm.
any operation, you are going to create value. And then that value can be shared with you and the operation, and that way everybody benefits.
Right.
So that's how that got started. Now, what was the question? I'm sorry, I got.
No, it's what led you to your passion to
Ah,
start Surflux. But
that's right.
but while you were in Alabama, I know several opportunities came your way.
That's right. And one of it, again, has to do with another recession. So
Yep.
in 2008, 2007, we have this massive housing build up 2007, and then we have the ground pulled from under our feet. And again, there's recession, and a lot of people are hemorrhaging jobs. Economies are tanking. All of this is happening. And at the time, the good news is that we had our leadership had their heads on straight, and they recognized that one way to buttress the economy, to provide it the right kind of strength, is to build bridges with other countries and trading partners. So we were not in the business of building walls; we were in the business of building bridges, and which makes sense because if you think about it, 95% of the world lives outside the United States, which means 95% of the market is outside the United States. And you look at Alabama, for instance, right? Then you have to think about it this way: that 99% of the world, or more than 99% of the world, lives outside Alabama. So
Right.
99% of the market is out there. So we need to be able to provide, we need to build bridges, and we need to provide products and services that would then lead to jobs and so on. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, no, no. I'm
Okay.
just fascinated.
So at the time, it was Governor Riley, and the Secretary of State was Beth Chapman, and they were putting together a trade mission to India, and they wanted to go ahead and pull together some of the best business leaders in Alabama who are from India, but they couldn't find enough, so they had to ask me.
Terrible. I thought you were going to pay yourself a compliment.
No, no. So I got to tag along with this group, a great group. We had a great time. We were able to build strong relationships. We were able to deepen understanding between two countries, two cultures, and it was great. After that, I went on some other trade missions for the state of Alabama, trying to show, Alabama has a lot of positive stuff. We just seem to somehow end up getting, the louder voices kind of sort of speak for us when it's not true at all. So it was really a great exercise to be able to go ahead and showcase Alabama, the true face of Alabama, the positive face of Alabama in many countries around the world. At the same time, I was also asked to be the chair of the Smiley Professionals Network, the IPN here, because they were undergoing the effects of the recession as well. And so I was able to piggyback the two off of each other, and was able to help set up a global infrastructure even for IPN at the time. I was working with some phenomenal people. IPN is an incredible group. And when I say that I was able to build that, what I'm trying to say is I was, again, tagging along in that journey where I got to be a part of this incredible initiative where we were able to build a global infrastructure. We're able to build trading partners for the state of Alabama. So everything is going really well, right? So how does this lead to cancer? Well, here's the problem. When you are out there in different parts of the world, you're doing this task of building bridges and so on and so forth. But the one thing that you can't help but notice is that the devastation that is caused by disease, in particular cancer, around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had committed to both organizations 3 years to serve with them. So when that tour of service, so to speak, was done, I said, look, if we are truly that smart, then we should be able to solve this problem of cancer. I mean, how bad can it be, right? After all, it's just another disease. That was my problem. Is I had absolutely no background in biology or medicine or any of that. So I was like, this thing can't be that difficult. We should be able to solve this problem. And so that's how I got interested in cancer. And then I realized that, listen, if I want to make a true impact, I have to learn enough about it. So I signed up for a PhD in nanomedicine at UAB.
Wait. I'm not going to let you get away with that easily. Because you just signed up for a PhD, like everybody does that. So let's just, I'm not going to ask you how old you were, because you might not want to let people determine how old you are now. But how long had you been out of college? You had a career.
Yes.
And you had a family. And you just decided we're just totally shifting.
Well, it's not totally shifting. It's like it's like the CPU, in a computer has tasks scheduler.
Right.
It's something similar to that, right? So oftentimes the CPU is idling, you know, uh, CPU is waiting on IO. And that is kind of the case. And I think that's how most of my time management essentially works, is like a CPU scheduler,
Uh-huh.
that, that, and I was able to structure the work that I'm doing so that it would open up a window of time
Hmm.
that I could dedicate to learning more, in terms of nanomedicine. And the advantage is the field, life sciences in particular, has this huge advantage
Uh-huh.
that there is massive amounts of idle time. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. When I was building uh, the platform to mimic blood vessels,
Oh,
every experiment that I would have to do, right? I would go ahead and seed the cells, then I have to wait. So
yeah.
I would put that in the incubator. Let's say it's a 24-hour cycle or a 72-hour cycle or a 7-day cycle. Well, I can't just watch it. It's not going to make any difference. So I would put it in there and I'd get back to my regularly scheduled programming, whether it is managing a company, whether it is with family, whatever, while the cells are cooking, so to speak. And then when it's my time to go back and check on them, I'd go do that. And I was able to mix and match these tasks. Again, fortunately, because it was life sciences, I was able to do it very efficiently, and I was able to graduate as if I did the program full time, even though I was working on it part time. So it worked out really well. I was able to finish my PhD in less than 5 years.
That's amazing. So when you went into your PhD thinking we've got to be able to cure cancer,
Mm.
how did you get to the direction where you ended in your 5 years, and then what was the shift to where you are today? Like, how did your path lead you to where y'all are with Surflux?
Okay. So again, I had the advantage because I was going in again later on in life, not lots
Yeah.
of gray hair, and I was going in with a targeted, specific goal. Right. I wanted to do something about cancer. I wanted to crush cancer.
Right.
So I structured my PhD such that the first part was fully understanding. Right? There's no such thing as fully I understand, but to the best of my ability, understand disease models. So that was the first thing I wanted to do.
I just have
So
to point out, because I don't think I said it earlier when you said I just signed up for my PhD, that you have zero medical background at this point, zero biology, nothing.
mhm.
But your desire, going back to what we said at the very beginning, you knew that this education was what you needed to be able to serve the world. And just you're jumping in and doing it. So I just totally interrupted what you said. But I think, like, just that, so many times people are held back, like, oh, well, I'm 40 and I haven't worked in 30 10 years, whatever. I'm just not going to go back. Or just, I mean, that's just, there's so many different things where people just look at where they are right now and just write it off because nobody's doing it. But you knew that this education was going to save the world, and it didn't matter what the world said. You just went for it. So I totally interrupted your train of thought. I'm so sorry,
No,
but
you're so kind, man.
it's such a
I
good
thank you for saying
picture.
that.
Yeah. So anyways, so you went in knowing you wanted to cure cancer with zero biology medical background, and you had great professors. And so how did that shape your path?
Yeah. So the first half, like I said, I was just about disease models, and then the second half was treatment models. So
Mm-hmm.
this is how I wanted to structure it, and so halfway through my PhD, I filed for the first patent, which is essentially the precursor to some of the platforms that we're developing today. And the idea is, let me jump a little further back, right? So if you think about cancer, right, we know that half the world or nearly half the world will be diagnosed with cancer. That's just a statistical eventuality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means everyone, including you, me, everybody will come face to face with cancer.
Right.
So that was something that was coming. This is a challenge that is already in front of humanity, and we have to find a way to solve it before it becomes in some would say it's already an urgency, but before it becomes an emergency. So we know that is the case. Now, what is not as well known is that when someone's diagnosed with cancer, it is conceivable that 75% of the time, so 3 out of 4 patients, and this is a fact reported by the FDA, that 3 out of 4 patients are first treated with drugs that don't work for them. And those drugs don't work not because the doctors don't know what they're doing. It's because the doctors don't have a way to identify which treatment will work best for which patient.
Mm.
So what is missing is a way to match treatments to tumors. That's something that's that can predict which treatment will work better. So that's a massive void in the market. So when you kind of recognize that hey, listen, I know that this is a $2.5 trillion problem. Every year we're spending $2.5 trillion.
Yeah.
This is a total impact. Yeah. Now we also know, so there's a financial cost, but we also know that there is a huge quality of life cost.
Mm.
Sure, quantity of life also, because people are dying sooner than they need to, right? So, but there's also a huge quality of life impact. That 3 out of 4 patients are going to go through the cycle of chemotherapy or whatever have you. They're going to go through the pain, the suffering. It's not going to do anything for them, and in some cases, it might actually even be harmful.
Right.
So, what can we do to solve that problem? So you have to first look around saying, what are other people doing? Lots of smart people doing lots of great things, right? But there's still lots of room for improvement. One of the areas that is very, very hyped up right now, and with good reason, is genomics and proteomics. There's a lot of interest in the nanoscale evaluation of cellular and subcellular pathways and so on, because these things lead to some really groundbreaking therapeutics. So all excellent. But what is still kind of missing is this matching, even though we have really good treatment options and we have got really great clinical providers, there's still not a way to match those. So that's the reason why the disease models, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because is there something that we can do to somehow make a little avatar of the patient, blast that avatar with all kinds of therapeutics that are FDA approved, okay? So these are drugs that the patient could be given, and then in a very quick turnaround time, be able to predict which ones will work and which ones will not work. And that was basically the seed of getting to Surflux. So we built this platform, have been growing it, and then when I graduated, so I graduated in April of 2018, and we started the company in May of 2018. Because the idea was pretty simple, right? No rocket science involved, nothing extraordinary. We simply want to match treatments to tumors. Very basic idea, very simple idea. The problem that a lot of companies are having is that, let's just say I have a tumor, right? And I'm going to get a small biopsy from the tumor. This is pretty standard. They do a small section of the tissue from the tumor is retrieved, so we can analyze what is the makeup and so on and so forth. Now, what we were thinking was, what if we could just take that same little piece of tissue and evaluate a bunch of therapeutics using that tissue? And we're not the only ones thinking that. There are other guys who are thinking that too. However, what they're doing for the most part is they take that little piece of tissue, because it's not enough tissue to test a bunch of things. So they expand it, which takes a little bit of time. Some companies take up to 8-9 months to come up with the right answer. And the good news is they come up with really good answers.
Yeah.
The bad news is it's too late by the time
long.
they give you the answer. Yeah.
Right.
So our approach is slightly different. Instead of growing the tissue, we have shrunk the apparatus.
Yep.
So that's it. Yeah, exactly. It's not again, it's not something that is completely revolutionary or anything like that. People are just going in one direction with tissue, expanded tissue, so you can test. We're going in the other direction, saying, forget about expanding the tissue. Let's shrink the apparatus, so then we don't have to expand the tissue, so we can give the answers more quickly. That's the whole basis of Surflux.
And it is amazing. So I want you to put that in like impact terms. Like if I was diagnosed with breast cancer, what Surflux could how we would use Surflux and how it would affect me immediately
Okay, so
compared to what
yeah.
happens now.
So right now, what happens is, again, we've got exceptional clinical teams. They're doing an exceptional job.
Right.
We also have guidelines from the NCC and the National Cancer Network,
Hmm.
um, and so they do the best with what they have today, right? So let's just say there's a breast cancer patient, right? That you brought up. By the way, the Breast Cancer Research Foundation has been supporting us, and we love them. So essentially, what happens is when the diagnosis is made, and let's just say that they identify that, hey, you know what, the tumor is about maybe a centimeter of whatever it might be, or they think that might be the size. So they could essentially extract a small core biopsy. So it's like you have a standard biopsy needle
Hmm.
that you reach into the tumor, and then you extract like a 1 centimeter long, about a 1 millimeter in diameter or smaller piece, and then you take a small section of that to identify, the histology of the tumor. Now what we would be doing is we would add no additional pain on the patient, since the tumor has already, since the tissue's already been pulled out, and a small piece of it has been used for the histology that they would do. We will take the rest of
Hmm.
the tissue, and then we would load it up into our bioreactor that we have developed. And that bioreactor can then essentially think about it as it having, there, are, there are many ways that we used to describe it. One is grilling a hot dog. So if you think of the core biopsy, it looks like a cylindrical
Yeah.
piece of tissue. So it's like a hot dog. And you essentially take that hot dog and you put it on a grill. But this grill is really weird in that it's not one flame under the grill, but if you think about the grill itself, in each area, you've got different levels of heat.
Mm.
So you leave the hot dog in there for 10 minutes or whatever. For us, it might be a day or 3 days, whatever it might be, for different types of tumor. And then you pick up the hot dog, and then you look at the char marks on
Uh-huh.
the hot dog, and then based on the hot dog that's burnt, the more burnt it is, so to speak, the more effective
Mm.
the drug was versus not. It's a very simple analogy, I know. The analogy that I love, by the way, which I shared with someone the other day as well. So this is a guy. His name is Bart. He's right here in Birmingham, and when he heard us talk about Surflux at one of the events, he came up to me and he says, "So it's like Tinder for treatments and tumors," and it is Tinder for treatments and tumors, except it's the Black Widow kind, because we do match the treatments to tumors, but in a sense that the Black Widow will then consume the tumor. But
That's awesome.
anyway, so yeah, so that's how. I don't know what the original question was, Kim. I love
Well,
speaking with
so
you because we
yeah,
go from.
I know. I'm working hard to keep it, anyways,
It's
there's
my
so
fault.
much to talk about. No, but so what happens then after you're able to match
All right.
the treatment with the tumor is that instead of me like going through one type of chemo that didn't work and then another type of
Yep.
chemo that maybe worked a little bit and then finally getting to that third round of chemo or I probably used the wrong word, but you get to start out with the chemo that has been proven to be the most effective.
Correct. Correct. And now think about the other things that happen, by the way. Okay, so
Yeah.
and this is what all the providers want to do. They want to get you started quickly on the
Right.
right treatment, because every day that you're not getting treatment, the tumor is probably growing. Every day that you're getting the wrong treatment, the tumor is probably growing. It's probably getting more aggressive.
Aggressive. Yeah.
You know, and every day that you're getting the wrong treatment, you're also kind of sort of becoming weaker, because
Yeah.
it's also affecting the rest of your system. So this is something that is a well recognized need. So this is where we really feel like we can make a huge impact, and this is why we're working like crazy. But
Yeah.
that would be us anyway, because we enjoy the work that we do. But I think that the reason why we're really focused on this, very simple. If you think about it, this is not, when my kids understand it. Just about at any age, you would understand that it's better to provide a matching treatment for the disease rather than just a guessed best match. So that's all we're trying to do, is we're trying to get a better match for every patient on an individualized basis, because tumors are very individual, they're very unique from patient to patient. Tumors are not alike. We have this morbid joke which says that cancer is a very rare disease that is ubiquitous, because each tumor is different, and it's not just different in how it's composed or where it is or so on and so forth, but it's also how it responds to treatment. And also within a single tumor, you also have a lot of different kind of factions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're malicious. So we have to be able to do a lot of little variable tuning, so to speak, to be able to identify the right treatment for each patient.
So where do you see Surflux in the next 5 years?
Wow. Well, so I mean, I would hope that in the next 3 years itself, that we are at least providing matches for 1,000 patients. In the next 3 years, I would like to be there, that we are providing 1,000 patients. In the next 5 years, I would like to be helping at least 10,000 or 20,000 patients. Because imagine if we can do that. Dr. Mansoor Saleh, he is one of our advisory board members, and he tells me, Karim, don't worry about the big dollars, and don't worry about this or that or anything. The only thing that you have to worry about is one day. He said, every day that you extend the life of the patient, that could be the one day that a new treatment has been discovered that could work for that patient. You extend the life of that patient, or the quality of life rather, for that patient for one day. That patient, whether that patient is a teacher, is a grandparent, an engineer, or entrepreneur, whatever, that's one additional day that they'd be able to contribute to society in a positive manner without being debilitating. That one day is that day that his or her friends and family can enjoy spending time with them, and they would not be stressed about the cancer. So he said, you just have to think about one day. He says, don't worry about the big, all of these big numbers and so on and so forth. Just one day. And so that's what, after 5 years, if we are able to do this one day for about 20,000 patients, or more, or if we are able to extend the quality of life, not just one day, but by months, you can imagine what that does. So yeah, we cannot get there fast enough, is what I would like to say. I mean, I would love to be there yesterday.
So what's the next big, I don't know if hurdle is the right word, but step that y'all need to take?
Good point. See, this is where the tech world is so different from the biotech world.
Yeah.
We can't just get users and say, okay, here, pilot our product, and
That's
if it
right.
doesn't work, well, guess what? You're dead. No, so that would not be good. Yeah. So we can't do that. We have, and this is by design, and it's very good. We want it to be this. So there's a rigorous process for us to go through these multiple clinical research phases. Right now, we're in the clinical research phase 1. We will be in this for about 9 months or so, 12 months. And then we move on to clinical research phase 2. And then once that is done, so during that time frame, we will also be getting through some of the regulatory components. So we have to get our CLIA certification. We have to get additional CPT, the current procedure, terminology code, things like that, that needs to basically be in place by the time we're actually ready to serve the first set of patients. So we have to go through like a 2.5 year process before we can actually be in market, so to speak, to start this commercial process of providing this information to the clinical providers for their patients. So we have a bit of a roadway ahead, but I also do believe that once we are cleared with this path, after the next 2.5 years, it will be very quick between that and the 3-year mark that we will be able to serve 1,000 patients. I would love to get to that point as soon as possible.
Me too. Yeah. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm switching gears a little bit on you. The title of this podcast is Building Birmingham Together. And I know that you love Birmingham and love to do whatever you can to help businesses grow. So what do you see are areas of growth for Birmingham? Like what do businesses really need to buy in to really help Birmingham, us all grow together?
Can we get better parking? No, I'm just.
I think they're working on it. They're working on it.
I'm glad that you brought this up. The good news about Birmingham is already we have an exceptional culture, so to speak, of openness. We are less afraid to engage, which is good. But I think if you wanted to see where we can truly unleash some of our potential, we have to look at the broader picture here, right? We are extremely comfortable. We have it historically, very comfortable with what I call cash-based or coins businesses. So I call these coins business, wherein you've got retail establishments, you've got real estate, factories, so on and so forth, where it's tangible. I can get my book value and I can see, okay, here's what my balance sheet looks like. Here's what my income looks like. This cash flow, so on and so forth. So we're very good, very comfortable with coins businesses. But that's not where we're going. That's not where we're heading, right? So we, in the last 5 years or so, have made dramatic strides in what I call the bits-based businesses, which is your information technology. So we are moving from coins. We're still there. Most of our economy, I think, is still coins-based, but we're moving to bits. We're moving to bits rapidly. We are understanding bits better. We are able to appreciate it and rally behind it. We've got good infrastructure that we're building to promote bits businesses. That's great. That's where things are today. But we have to look ahead. So what is the next chapter, right? We got coins, we got bits. The next chapter is ink, and that is innovation from new knowledge. And that's the kind of stuff that I think is involved with life sciences. You look at what Techstars is doing here with the energy company, TrueSpin is involved in that. Basically, now what we have to do is we have to take concepts that take a little bit more work and that are not just growth based. So bits-based companies, majority of them are growth based. Throw enough capital at it, okay, grow it fast enough. More importantly, wipe out the competition, and then you're good. That's just how the nature of bits-based businesses is, right? Ink businesses are not just growth based. You have to have a solid concept that is based on new knowledge. So you have to have some new knowledge component, which gives you this barrier to entry. So it's not just a matter of throwing capital at it, but a different mechanism by which you would establish yourself within the market, or perhaps create a whole new market segment. And then you take this new knowledge, because by itself, the new knowledge is great from bragging rights perspective, but it's not great from a serving others perspective. And you have to translate that new knowledge to innovation. And by innovation, I mean that you have to actually take it to market, and you have to be able to provide real value to real people. And that's why ink businesses. We are just embarking on this. We've got Bio Alabama doing work around it. I know BBA is working on it. So these are the kinds of things that we need to think ahead and say, okay, if we want to lead the economy in the future, in 10 years down the road, how does Birmingham position itself to become a leader in the new economy? Well, we've got to get ahead of ink, and we need to be able to have the mantle of the leadership in ink, and that's what we need to be doing. And for that, we need more conversations. We need brilliant people, no question about it. But we need places for these brilliant people to connect, for these brilliant people to exchange ideas, share knowledge, and if they are unsuccessful in that current venture, to be able to refactor all the resources and go ahead and start something else with some other people, or whatever the case may be, because these are not just easy problems to solve. But then who cares about easy problems anyway, right? These are difficult problems, and so you need to be able to bring people together in a very engaging manner. And so I think we need to have people, and we need to have appropriate places for these people to connect. Very important, my opinion.
And we're on the way. You feel good about the direction that we're going?
Yes, I do feel good about it, and I think we saw some of that despite COVID. Okay, we had this pandemic where essentially a lot of the pain was self-inflicted. I think I don't mean by Birmingham self-inflicted, I mean national leadership and so on. But despite all of the problems that the pandemic brought to us, I think as a community, we saw Birmingham shine.
Yeah.
We saw people come together, in helping each other. The spirit of community, I mean, was incredible. The Vulcan Awards just did their awards, and I was talking to them about the servant leader concept, and I said, there's not just one spear, there's 100,000 spears right here in Birmingham. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things, and I think we need to be able to harness that. We need to be able to showcase that and harness that. So to your point, yes, we are on our way, but it's a fragile path. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be nurtured. It has to be protected. Cannot take it for granted.
Right. Okay, I think I have one more question, but it might lead to another one. But the last question that I do like to ask everybody are lessons that you've learned along the way on your path that impact the way that you run your organization or just live your life.
Well, I can summarize that very quickly in what Chris Krebs, he's our CFO, he puts it very well, and what he says is very applicable to both him and I,
Mm-hmm.
more me than him. And basically, it is that every success that we have encountered in life thus far is by being at the right place with the right people at the right time. And every spectacular failure has been because of our own brilliance. So I think that I think it's extremely important to recognize that being surrounding yourself with right people
Mm-hmm.
is extremely important. When we had our first set of tumor specimens that we were evaluating at Surflux, I paused for a second and I showed the team a little clip from a movie, Mortal Kombat. I love this clip, and I apologize, if I know it's not like a award-winning classic movie, but to me, that one line where Sonia says that a handful of people on a leaky boat are going to save the world, to which Raiden says, exactly. And that is true always. It has always been true in my life, by the way. And I always used to think that it was about being on a leaky boat, because no matter how many problems you solve, the next problem that you're going to try to solve, you're not going to have enough resources, and thus you're going to be on a leaky boat. You're always going to be in a leaky boat. But that's not true. The real value here is about that handful of people who are
Mm.
with you on the leaky boat. You have to make sure that you have that handful of people, the right handful of people who can work with you despite a leaky boat and be able to solve no matter how big a problem that you choose to undertake. So, handful of people, very important. How's that?
That's great. That's great. So one last question, and this is going all the way back to the beginning, because it pours out in everything that you say and do, just this desire, true desire to serve others and make the world better, literally make the world better. And I think about where you started with your family in India in extreme poverty. So I just how did this lesson get in this not lesson how did this idea get instilled into you to drive you to do that in everything that you do, which has led to a software company, which has led to Surflux, but it would take that form in anything that you did. So where did that come from? And then, sorry, one more, because you're a parent and I'm a parent. How do you instill that in your children today? And then I promise that's my last question.
The first part is easy,
I know.
but I would point out that we do come from humble roots, but we were not in extreme poverty. Believe it or not, there were a huge segments of people who were even in worse of situations than we were. Uh, okay, having
Hmm.
identified that or highlighted that, how was I able to, right? So I talked about, when you come out of poverty, you have
Hmm.
two different instincts. But the other advantage that I also had, again, it comes back to people, is and I cannot stress this enough, that I stand on the shoulders of giants. When I was growing up, uh, I had this wonderful set of people. My grandfather, for instance, these guys were philosophers. They truly understood and embraced the vision of one humanity, and they instilled that in me, so that even though you're growing up in a scenario, in a context where you don't have enough, you have all these problems, but you're able to then at some point simply reflect back in and see the grandness of humanity, and you're able to see just how expansive, uh, you know, truly a human race is. And so that gives you a broader perspective. And then you also recognize that, hey, you are not here just to serve yourself. You are here so that you can be a part of advancing society. It's you have to work toward that. That is your mission. That is your responsibility. you have to leave the spaceship that we're on better for your children
Mm-hmm.
than when you inherited, right? Than what you inherited. So that was instilled in me, not necessary, not by um, strict rules and so on and so forth, but through a very rich philosophical tradition of telling stories, really.
Right.
Um, and I'm using that with my children as well. So to answer the second point, and my children love it. And what I also see, which I did not realize at the time when I was being told the stories, is that as my children are growing, they they now I can see that they are now dwelling on different aspects of the same story. So even though I'm saying they'll ask you to say something, ask you to repeat a story again, but it's a different aspect that they're focusing on, which also shows me how their brain is developing, how they're growing, that they're able to now digest a different level, same story, a different level of the story. And to me, that is what I love about having stories that are told rather than being written and read. Writing and reading, very important, by the way, so please
Right.
don't get me wrong. But I think for parents to be engaged with their children in narrating stories, I think is a whole different dimension. Whether it's parents, grandparents, whatever have you, I think that just adds a new dimension, because it's not just a matter of, okay, I'm reading the story, I'm visualizing what the characters would be like, so on and so forth. But now I have somebody to bounce that idea off of,
Mm.
somebody who's had a different life experience, somebody who's been on this planet a few decades more than I have, and it just makes for a very rich interchange. It's also very beneficial for me when I do these little story time sessions with my children. They're all impromptu, by the way. There's no such thing as a set story time, but there's a lot of benefit both for parent and for children.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say if you get a chance, read stories, sure, and then narrate them to them. Add your own little flair to it, and have fun with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kareem, for joining us today on Building Birmingham Together. I am so inspired by the work that you do, but also for your zeal for life and your true servant attitude towards everybody that you meet. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim, so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.